Hey everyone, welcome to today's very special episode of Pictures on My Mind. I'm your host, Edward Thompson, brought to you today with, and collusion of, Mark Wilson and Jim Mortram, and who I must congratulate them on both successfully already reaching their Kickstarters for their coming photo books. So I'm glad I could have really helped you with that, guys. So there you go.
Well, look, part of the reason I really wanted to be here tonight was specifically because I wanted to tell Mark just how pleased and proud I am of you, and what an inspiration. What an inspiration.
Jim. What have I done to deserve that?
Well, it's not just your work ethic, which is pretty much peerless. You're always really cool online. There's no drama attached. You're a genuine dude, which I mean, this goes for both of you, but I really wanted to tell Mark. Because, we all go way, way, way back on the online thing. But man, seeing you really work hard, not just in the making of the photographs and the researching and juggling, family at the same time. I think maybe going through it at the same time as you, because I had no idea, Ed, right? I had no idea that Simon Roberts was going to drop the post Kickstarter, and Mark was going to drop his at the same time as I was doing.
None of us did. It was great.
We all found out at like the same time, and I think what was really cool was that we actually all helped each other, try and, because when you enter into this thing, it's as bleak as can possibly be, and it's like the absolute tip top uppermost of the bell curve of the stress and the worry you've carried for however long that long form project may have been. And how long have you been working on this new book, Mark?
This one was quite short for me. It was 2 years, which is, as well as anybody else, or better than most people, that, that's quite a short time. My projects have spanned from kind of 6 years, 4 years, and then, 2 years, and sometimes a year and stuff like that. But you're right about the Kickstarter. It's actually, Ed told us not to swear, so I can't say that. But it messes with your head completely. And I've done 6, and I don't do them with the kind of massage of your shoulders with the publisher and stuff like that. So it's just me. And even though you kind of know and you feel, how it's going, and you think it's going to be successful because the last one was going along the same lines and stuff like that, it's ridiculous because you get a pledge and you're on top of the world. And you're like, this book is going to happen. It's fantastic. And then literally 30 seconds later, you're like, that's it. That's the last one. The book's not going to happen. What am I going to do? And it's crazy. There's no in-betweens at all.
No, it's... there's a great trial in doing this anyway. I've just spent 7 years making the work through all manner of disaster, through COVID, through lots of family stuff, through the changing dynamic of online anyway. Twitter changing to X really was a huge punch in the guts for me, because I'd kind of focused all my... I don't like the word networking, but I'd focused all my community building primarily on that one space. And it seems like in the space of 48 hours, it just evaporated instantly when the new algorithm was brought in. So it was a quick case of, right, let's try and build it up on Instagram. And I'm like, so much of what we do isn't photography, and all the while we're kind of filled with the confidence in the actual thing that we're trying to make and trying to realize, because we wouldn't have devoted so much out of our own lives and made so many sacrifices to do it if we didn't completely believe in, the thing that we're actually making the work for. But all the other stuff is, I suffer from anxiety anyway. So, yeah. It was just like, I really wanted to come on here and say I'm just so amazingly proud of you, not just for this one, for this one obviously, but for all of it, because you're such a really great example of don't give up, don't quit, don't no matter how tired you are, because mentally and physically it's exhausting. And
I think it's like it's the 6th one I've done. and they're all as kind of mad at each other. But it's I've you know, I chose that route like 4 or 5 years ago to take this all upon myself.
Yeah.
To, you know, by going with self-publishing and stuff like that. And I quickly realized how much that involved, and that, you know, taking the photographs is still, you know, beyond a shadow of doubt, the most important part of the whole process, because there's nothing can follow if you don't do that in the first place. But then at the same time, all these extra processes that you now have, they kind of gain an equal importance, because without them, the work stays, you know, in your roll of film, or, you know, on your lightbox or in your computer and stuff like that. And you can talk about it and you can show some pictures online and stuff like that, but it's never the complete thing. So I've kind of taken it all on board, because I know that's the only way to get the work out there properly.
Yeah.
Into the forms that I think the work deserves, you know, whether it's like book form and exhibition and stuff like that. And it's so, at the same time though, I feel like the luckiest guy in the world. You know, it's like I've got an incredible wife, 2 beautiful boys, and I do stuff that I love doing. So that's why I'm happy to kind of spend all my time and all the energy making the work, which I hope is about, you know, important enough subjects.
I kind of really believe that you make your own luck. Really, what luck is, I mean, if you don't put the work in, you don't get any luck at all. So I kind of think that, you know, you've done the work, so that's why it gets realized. There's no luck involved. It's all down to your hard work. And, you know, I know that I'm publishing this with Image and Reality, and the bit that they're really taking care of for me is the printing and then the distribution, because there's no way that I can physically, I can't really leave home because of my carer duties, so I can't go on site to like oversee all of that sort of stuff. So for me, that's, plus I really love working with Colin, because it's Colin from Blue Coat Press, and, you know, loyalty is a big thing with me. So when he came out of retirement, I was like, well, I'm absolutely doing it with you.
That's what I just got to jump in, man. So yeah, I was so thrilled when I saw it, because obviously I got your small town and nursery right here, and obviously Colin's involved, and then obviously I've got some Blue Coat books behind it. I don't know if you can see these. That's Peter Dench. There you go. And like, yeah, obviously then I've been bought out by BJ or sold to BJP or taken over by BJP. So it really tickled me when I was going through a Kickstarter, and I was like, I like that. I thought it was a nice touch.
Yeah, Colin's brilliant. He's like, he's a friend, you know. You work with him, but you can trust him, and you know that when you're having a conversation, he's not one of those. There's a lot of people in the photography world, and I've spoken to a lot of people about this at various things, who, you know, when they come up to you, they're kind of shaking your hand, but they're looking the other way at the same time, and then they're talking to you and they're looking over your shoulder at the same time to see if there's someone better that they can talk to and stuff like that. And Colin's not one of them. No. You know, he's like, you know, he talks to you and he listens to you and he works with you, and it's amazing, I think.
And he really cares. That's the thing. And you can't fake the experience that he's got, and also the life that he's had. That, you know, I do think, I mean, I did a podcast the other day with Grant Scott on the UNOP, and we were talking about, well, what is it that really makes a photographer? And I think it was weird, because I don't often think about stuff like that. And it turned into like a weird kind of therapy session for me. And you kind of realized that really the fundamental thing that really makes a photographer is the life that you've had and the life that you're currently living, and all of that information, all of that stuff, and maybe having the presence of mind not to put that overtly in front of the camera, you know, in front of the lens. You've got to know what's happening behind, and not kind of like invade too much on the work that you're trying to make, because it's not my bag to do that anyway. I always say cameras are brilliant because they really show you, like, they really show you how they work. It's like the lens points that way, and you can do that. It's, you know,
not this way.
Exactly. You know, the instructions are really, really simple. I don't know where I'm going with that, but
that's the beauty, is that if you don't like kind of sit there. I know I don't, and I know you don't, Jim or Ed as well. We don't kind of sit in our homes or whatever and go, oh, what shall I make work about today? What would be successful? What would be cool? What do people want me to make work about? It's not that way at all.
I'm doing the
exactly. But the exact opposite is what's good, because you're making work that means to you. You know, it's like you're being honest to yourself in the choices that you're making, and then And if you do that and you are yourself, and
Yeah.
then you make work in the right way,
Yeah.
and if you're a good person, you'll make good work.
The tragic thing, guys, the tragic thing with like the death of photojournalism is not so much is that through digital, we basically captured the means of like we had the means of production, right? We had it. The means of production now available to everyone. We got the digital cameras. It's we don't have to be all Jacques-Henri Le Tigre or William Eggleston, right? It's more democratic. But we then lose the means of distribution. And like papers, magazines, all these things that used to be the things that literally gave photographers career, they've all gone by the wayside. There are weekend magazines now that are paying like over half less than they paid 15 years ago. So it's just that's really put a hammer on all of this. And I was going to do an episode about this, but it's got to the point. It's like just make what you want to do, because like it doesn't matter. They don't even consider like, oh, this will sell well. Like, dude, no one's going to buy it. No. The best you're going to do is like make a book that's good, that you believe in, and then sell that. That's my plan, my route, and that's what I've been doing. I think that's what we're all doing.
Well, they're the books that kind of should really exist. Actually existing as a physical thing that people can hold, and is for me they're like the ultimate empathy delivery machine. When you're in physical proximity to a photograph, it's a very different human experience. I think that something about the tactile nature of it makes you remember that, oh, this is real. This isn't one step removed. This isn't in the digital realm where people, I think, are kind of indoctrinated into just swipe left. It is so temporary. But a book is something.
But like look at the size. This is your last stand, right? And then look at the size of a phone screen. Do you know what I mean? Like, it's just as simple as that. How do you want someone to view your photograph? Do you want to view it like that big, or do you want to see it like 10 by 8? It's
To me, it compares to like exhibitions as well. As I love going to exhibitions, right? And I like having exhibitions of my work as well, because it opens the work up to a different audience and a different way of viewing it. But the book is everything to me, because of what you're saying there, Jim. It's an intimate one-on-one experience. You can, if you want, you can sit on your stairs and you can read it. You can sit on your sofa in your garden. You can go into a dark basement somewhere and you can sit and you can read your book. I've seen your videos.
Hey, Mark,
but you have like
in a
all
dungeon
that
next, wasn't he?
Yeah, that's why.
Can I just say also, I don't really give a shit about exhibitions anymore. I've done loads of exhibitions, right? Here's something weird. Let's compare it to music, right?
Mm-hmm.
I can listen to a band on my own, and I feel like I'm having the most, with the lyrics and the music, having the most profound, personal, intimate connection with those people or that person, right? But I wouldn't get, and this sounds crazy, if I was watching them live. I know it sounds mental.
No, it doesn't.
Whereas, like with an exhibition, you're walking around and you're looking at all this stuff, and other people are there and they're looking and whatever, and it's all, Whereas with a book, it's personal. It's that intimacy of you sat there.
I couldn't go to a live music concert now, just because of everyone with phones. It would drive me nuts.
Yeah.
I mean,
there's a cool meme of like a rave and everyone's holding up phones and not dancing, and then it cuts to Leonardo DiCaprio and Shutter Island being like, "What the f is going on?" Because no one's dancing; they're all just static, holding their phones.
It wasn't like that when I went to raves.
No, me neither.
They were just holding on to their sanity in reality. They weren't. There's no hands free to hold a phone.
So, should we show some pickies?
Yeah.
Who should we segue to first? I've got two lovely PDFs here.
Jim's always good, I think, to start.
Right, Jimmy, here we go.
Yeah.
Let me get you. Shall I get to the cover of the new one? How's that? There we go.
It's funny. I'm actually in conversation at the moment as to whether that's going to stay the cover. But I think it will. I think it will. But there's always last minute tinkering, isn't there? I think maybe...
Well, you know what? Your last book is quite busy as well. It's quite a busy image, and I think that's quite fun. And it's
the reissue's actually got a new cover and a load more pictures, load more tests.
Oh wait, let me then go to the next slide, Jim. You mean that reissue?
I do, yeah.
You're well organised, Ed.
He is, isn't he? This is fantastic. Yeah. You can make a career out of this.
I know.
You really can't, man. You get paid about £2 per 1,000 views. There's no way, and I won't sell out. So this is it. But I'm enjoying it. I'm having a good.
So you'll get about 50p for tonight, yeah, if you're lucky.
If I'm lucky, I'll probably get £1.
It's a pound
anyway,
more than I will.
Enough about that. Tell us about the book, Jim.
Well, okay. So Small Town Inertial 1, I'm not going to go too deep into my story. If people want to find it, go on YouTube and do all of that sort of stuff. There's plenty of interviews with me talking about how I got to actually be doing this. But in short, Small Town Inertia 1, Volume 1, was 7 years of me going out into my local community, like 3 miles from where I'm sat right now. And it was kind of, the idea behind it was given to me through an experience with an elderly neighbor when I was first loaned a camera. I didn't own a camera. Somebody loaned one to me.
Oh wait, sorry.
I met an elderly gentleman that literally lived 2 houses down, who was in his 80s, and I was in a really bad place. For those that don't know, I'm a unpaid carer. I've been looking after my mum since the middle 90s, and yeah, I got quite isolated, got really marginalized, and I kind of really bonded with this elderly guy, WH, and started making pictures with him. And really the experience was as beneficial for him as it was for me, because he hadn't really spoken to anybody for about 20 years. And at that point, I hadn't really spoken to anybody for about 15. You know, I'd just been doing my carer thing and like stuck at home. And about 2 months after we started, he had to go to hospital for cancer, had a successful operation, but caught an infection in the hospital, sadly passed away. And I was really devastated at this, because he was like the first friend I'd had for a good 15 years. It was just a brief, like 8 weeks. It sounds crazy, you know, talking about it now, but he had such a profound effect on me. And the experience, really, rather than be drowned in grief, although it really hurt terribly, because I missed him, I still miss him. I realized that what he'd given me was this blueprint of really what I could do with the rest of my life. You know, I had no idea about anything to do with photography. I really didn't know how to use a camera. I'd only just got online, and I was still on like dial-up, and it was the days of, I guess, Flickr. So I was posting there, and really the blueprint he gave me was, well, I know he's gone, but in my heart, he's still alive. And through these photographs and through all of these conversations we'd had, I realized it was like a way of preserving, you know, without those photographs and the information he'd shared with me, he would have just passed into the ether, never to be seen or heard of again. And I kind of butted that idea up with a need that I'd seen in media, I guess, to rebut the media narrative surrounding people in poverty, or people really book ones about austerity, because it kind of, all of these things happens kind of like converge at exactly the same time. So it was when David Cameron and George Osborne and Ian Duncan Smith all got voted in, and the first thing they did was attack the welfare state. And so I've discovered what a blog was. I didn't know what a blog was, so I started the Small Town Inertia blog. And even though I only get maybe, you know, between 3 and 5 or 6 hours free a week, I was walking into town, meeting people, documenting them, interviewing them, helping them. And I guess now, 15 years later, that's grown really organically into like a big network of, you know, we built our own community. That's what it feels like. We built our own community, no matter how marginalized we all are. And though we all met as strangers, now I feel like they're all my family. You know, you don't know anyone for 15 years and know everything about them, and without really truly caring. And for me, it's like I'm always there as a person prior to me being there as a photographer. You know, photography for me is just about making the photographs be strong enough to be worthy of doing the functional job of stopping people in this digital tsunami of images, just stopping people long enough, grabbing their attention long enough to read the testimony. And in that way, I guess I've taken my cue from what photographs used to do in the Picture Post or Life magazine. You know, you'd be flicking through a magazine, oh, that picture's stopped me, I'll read that article. So even though we don't have the opportunity to have work in those places now, because they kind of don't exist, that was the template that I kind of worked towards. Yeah, so the Small Town Inertia 1 was 7 years in the lives of a number of people in my market town, just 3 miles away. I'm in the middle of Norfolk, so it's just like a little market town. And Norfolk is pretty much overlooked, always has been, you know, by the rest of the country. And Small Town Inertia Volume 2 is another 7 years. And the reason I hung out and I persevered with it through COVID and PTSD diagnosis and the changing nature of the internet was because something really shocks me. And it was as simple as this, that if you'd have told me when I started Small Town Inertia Volume 1 that I would be doing the same work under a completely different government, I'd have been like, no, because I still had hope then. Now it's a different government, different philosophy, supposedly. But if anything, it's worse. Yeah, you know, I go back to that old Bill Hicks joke. Is it the puppet on the left or the puppet on the right, or is it the puppeteer in the middle? Well,
but this is becoming, Jim, this is becoming very apparent, right? There's a crazy show on YouTube called Surrounded. Mehdi Hassan went on it and just obliterated 24/8 twonks, right?
Yeah.
I've seen one today. I didn't recognize the guy's name, but I knew about it because he was the guy who founded the Young Turks in America. And like he's arguing with like 10 Republicans and 10 Democrats, and his opening gambit is like essentially Democrats and Republicans are the same. They're just using culture war to fusicate and carry on with their agendas, which are the same. And it's like, whoa, that's like, that came out today, I think.
I'll be watching that.
But it's very like
this because it's so true.
Yeah, but that's in the zeitgeist, man. Like, it's not just wacky people who've observed it through their perceptive skills. Like, it's on like a crappy, what's it called, clickbait, like YouTube channel that loads of people watch. So I think people are going to start having those thoughts, right?
Well, it's interesting that, you know, that I mentioned earlier the podcast I did with Grant, and he made a really good point, and it's something I'll repeat here. And it was basically, you know, work like Mark's and mine and yours, I would say, really has to come from somebody that cares. You have to care about the thing that you're making the work about. You know, you have to have a passion for it. You have to be really engaged, and it takes a little piece of your heart to make it. And Grant was questioning me about, you know, why is there so little work like that made today? Is it because the possibilities to have the work published and therefore have a career have evaporated, so you really have to be Ronin and just hang out in the wilderness on your own, sacrifice everything to make it? Or is it because people just don't give an F anymore? Because if you have people that don't really care, then they're never...
Oh yeah, but we know people don't care. Just look what's been going on in the world the past 2 years. Like, clearly no one cares. But the good news is, guys, is we transcend time because of our medium. So yeah, although people might, as a majority of population on this planet, not care about the most grotesque shit that's happening right now, the good news is that our little photos can later on become evidence.
Well,
so
that's why
maybe we're doing it for a future generation who do care.
Yeah.
So there's also that kickback. So even if you're a complete like nihilist now, being like, no one gives a shit, you'd be like, yeah, but maybe they will in 10, 20, 30 years, and then your photograph can be used for something else.
Ed, I will say, it wasn't so much about the reception of the audience. It was about photographers choosing to devote themselves to making work that they really care about. And that's where this work originates from. Because if you don't, literally, if you don't have photographers that truly care about something, other than taking pictures of their trainers, their dinner,
their own cameras, it seems.
Their own, yeah, exactly. Then that work simply can't exist, irrespective of there being like a, you know, the industry of old where you could go and, you know, get a gig at the Sunday Times or the Observer or all those great magazines that you like buy off eBay and pour through and think, oh God, if only I'd been around then, I could have. Well, we're not, and we have to do what we do right now. the thing that just leaves me really sad is we're living in such an amazingly dynamic, terrifying, turbulent moment in history. Photography is, I would argue, the most popular that it's ever been, because everybody is, you know, on their phone staring at pictures all day. And I look at Instagram and I see this kind of, you know, with all the podcasts you see about living in a matrix, in a simulation, sometimes I'm like, am I living in a simulation where everybody's the most banal, like, advert with lungs? Everybody's just advertising product. They don't even know they're doing it. It's the most narcissistic time I think I've ever lived in, because really what people only talk about is themselves. So where's the, you know, I want to go on Instagram and I want to see hundreds of thousands of truth, of pictures of, well, this is what life is like, but it's not happening. So if there's one thing that I really hope comes from making work like this is, you know, there's a little bit of me that is trying so hard to survive and make this work, just in case there's a 16-year-old kid that wanders into a library and sees the book and goes, oh, I didn't know people like that could make things like this, so maybe I'll give it a try. Because
yeah, exactly. And I think the main thing is like, it's me coming up as well. You know, everyone who graduated when I was a student had the money to go flying off around the world and doing all the cliched stuff you're supposed to do when you're a jet set photojournalist. I went to find a woman who was 15 miles from where I lived who rescued battery farm chickens, and yet mine was the work that was in National Geographic magazine. Because and that's the thing, is I think a lot of the inspirational photographers, particularly in British photography, they aren't the people jumping out of helicopters in chinos, because what happens is a young person sees their work and thinks, oh wait, I could do that. And the truth is, you can do that. There's no boundary of entry here. It's just your will. If you're willing
not anymore.
Do it.
Yeah,
I mean,
I think
it
shows really clearly when someone cares about the work that they make, and I think it also shows, unfortunately, really clearly when people make work that they don't care about, but they do it for all the wrong reasons. They do it because they think it's the right work to make. They do it because they think it's cool, or they do it because they think they'll get likes, whatever, or they think they'll be successful from it. And it's such an easy sell, and it's so easy to see that. But then the work that is good and is important is the work that's made by people who completely evidently care about what they're doing, and they're not doing it for success. They're doing it, you know, exactly for that reason you're talking about, Jim. They're doing it for, so, you know, one 6-year-old kid picks up your book and maybe they'll do the same thing again, or a 6-year-old will read the book and they'll learn something that they didn't know about, and they'll go and tell their mate. And maybe they'll change a little bit. They won't change the world, and I know I'll never change the world with my photography, you know, not now, and not in the future, unfortunately.
The thing is, right,
little bits at a time.
The thing is, right, this whole change in the world of photography, like for a long time, like I was a card-carrying believer that photography would change the world. And then post 2 years of what's been happening, I was like, no, forget it, because like the compact of the photojournalist was that you'd experience horror, you'd show that horror to the people, and the people would act, and that pact has been broken. Because
do you not think that recent photograph out of Gaza has gone some way in, because it was talked about so much by,
you know what, Jim, I do, and I recorded a 30-minute YouTube episode about it last night, which is funny that you mentioned that. I haven't had time to edit it today, but I have, and I was literally, what I was about to say was I do again because of that image, and the reason was, I won't spoil it, but you know, it's long story short, it's because that's able to be shared, whereas the shit that I've been seeing is so horrific. Legacy media won't touch it. It's too horrific. It's beyond people's ideas of hell. Whereas an image like that of a mother and a child, how can you? But they still did. They still found ways to say, oh, pre-existing conditions. It's still horrific. But anyway, my point is I still am a card-carrying believer. And here's the weird thing, gentlemen. Let's say your photography doesn't change the world, but your photography changes you. And by changing yourself, you change the world.
Yeah. You know, that can work. You're changing one
person.
Man,
can I just get one of those, Jim? Can I just reach? I'm just going to get one of those from you. I've been thinking about starting again. It's just so good. Everyone vapes. I mean, just, look at that. Look at that.
Yeah, my mind's always taken back to a very early American press Don McCullum book, and it's called Is Anyone Taking Any Notice? And that's been, I don't have any tattoos, but if I did, I might have that, because it's...
Hold on, wait. You don't have any tattoos?
No.
Yet you look like a roadie from the Eagles. Mark, do you have any tattoos?
I don't, mate. But then I don't look like a roadie from the Eagles.
I don't have
No,
any.
you
three?
I think we
Wow.
must be like some of the last people in Britain who don't have tattoos
Probably.
at this point.
The three of us and Ronaldo are amazing, isn't it?
So weird.
Yeah.
So weird.
I
Sorry,
don't want to
Jim.
look
it's
like
It's
like-
just a bombshell that you didn't have tattoos. I was like, I can't.
No tattoos.
I think that's one of the whole things before that is like, you know, why do you make work? You know, you're doing it because you think you're going to change the world, or you can do this. I think that's the problem, is that as soon as you start caring and worrying about that, that's when you've gone wrong.
Yeah, you're thinking about the reaction, whereas really, you know, like I said, when I think about photography and its function in my life and my community's life, it is literally exactly what I said earlier. I've got to make photographs that perform. They've got to exist as visual hooks. So when they go out into social media, which is my means of publication 99% of the time, I have to make sure that they're good. Are they good enough to stop someone? And, you know, that's what keeps me pursuing to always improve. And but then again, I don't know how you two kind of like inform yourself about photography, but for me, I came to it quite late. You know, I was in my mid-30s when I first even held a camera, and luckily I'd studied. Well, I almost finished my degree, but I jacked it in to come home to look after my mum. But I'd studied painting. I'd been a lifelong like cinephile, just love cinema. I'd always been a big reader. I'd always listened to loads of music and made music. But I didn't appreciate just how vast my own visual library was before even touching a camera. So when I actually got to make photographs, I've never really had to think about it. I certainly don't. One of the luxuries of that, and it's something that I really treasure, is whenever I look at anybody else's work, I don't do it looking for ideas. To me, that's like the ultimate mark of disrespect. That, you know, I was looking at a Eugene Richards book yesterday, and I looked at it as a human being, which I think was any photographer's intention. You don't make a book for someone to look at and go, oh, that's a good angle, I'll do that next time I'm out.
Jim, pause there. I saw Eugene Richards do a talk when he was still a member of Seven Photo Agency on the 13th of April 2007.
Wow.
And he said to an auditorium at the Royal Geographic Society, that big auditorium there, hey, look, all this work I was doing, Cocaine Crew, Cocaine Blue, The Fat Baby, all this stuff, you know what? Rip me off. Rip me off. These stories still need to be told, and they're still going on. Rip me off. He literally said that to everyone. So you know what? Rip him off, Jim. He's giving you the green light. You're
maybe, I'll hammer down on that point. Eugene Richards inspires me in this way. His ethics, his morality, his work ethic. But I don't look at his photographs and sort of get ideas for composition, put it like that.
I think he meant subject matter was where he was.
Yeah, and that's what good photography should do. It should inspire you to want to go out and make work.
Yeah.
You know, it's not make this work or make this work this way, but get off your chair and go and do something. Tell a story. Yeah. You know, you decide the story yourself, obviously, but that's you know, that's what I want to do with my I say my photos. And it's kind of, I was thinking about something whilst you were talking, Ed, is that, and I always feel kind of weird when I say this, but photographs are so unimportant as a photographer. You know, it doesn't matter. It's just a vehicle. It's a visual vehicle to get exactly what you're talking about, Jim, to get someone talking about a subject, thinking about a story.
I'll tell you about this.
Photographs is that hook, you know.
I know that you asked me, Ed, to tell you about the book, and this is how bad I am at business.
But look, you know, you guys have done this is so much, you know, and like your creation myths. I think your creation myths are online. We can do all, you know, do you know what I mean? Like we can do all that stuff.
If you can go back one image,
yeah,
this is the final image of the new book, and it's also the last image that I've actually been able to get out and make. I haven't been out of the house for 3.5 months because I'm dealing with stuff with my folks, but This image is so heartbreakingly sad, and no spoilers, but it is the last image of the book, and I'll explain what's happening in it. That David, who's one of the first people that I met and started collaborating with on Small Town Inertia 15 years ago, was blinded falling off his bicycle when he was, Christ, the age that I am now, 53. It was just him and his mum was in her late 80s then. She passed away of malnutrition during austerity, and he was left all alone, and he's got no friends, no one visits him. I'm pretty much the only person that he speaks to. We've done some amazing things together, you know, from like raising money to get him telephones and scanners and all sorts of different things. A couple of years ago, he got diagnosed with prostate cancer, and he's refused any help for it. He just wants to ride it out until the end. And this photograph is of him listening to a response from Grok, the AI. I took my phone. I always obviously have my phone with me, but I was talking to him about AI, and I said, "Do you want to have a go?" So it was such a strange, like, dystopian event, because he's listening there to a voice that isn't real, that's actually making him feel quite calm and non-judged. You know, he'll go out into town and he'll get picked on. People say nasty things to him. He's had a few physical altercations. And I just wonder to myself, Christ, is this the future of care in this country, where it will be robots and artificial intelligence because they're programmed not to judge? So he was asking all kinds of questions, you know? And it just strikes me as being incredibly sad that ultimately, coming into what's going to be the end of his life, it's probably going to be him and artificial intelligence talking to him, because nobody else seems to care. That's the problem. You know, it goes back to that McCullum book that I mentioned. Is anyone taking any notice? Well, from David's perspective, what happens is, if a politician goes on the news and says, well, you know, the benefit scrounge is this, or disabled people are the reason we've got austerity, he'll go out the next day and somebody will have a pop at him. You know, he's been physically attacked in town by people. And, you know, I asked him once, have you felt that, you know, because he wasn't born with a disability, it was an accident, and then he was 100% nil light perception blind. I said, over the course of the time that you have had this affliction, have you noticed that the feeling of fear, for want of a better word, has gone up as the years have gone by? Because we're now talking about a 15-year period where primarily in this country, people with disabilities, people within the benefit system, have consistently been blamed for the ills of our financial affairs, if you like. And his answer is yes, it has. Things have got way, way, way more difficult. And I don't know. It just makes me so sad. The fact that, you know, I live on an island called, you know, Great Britain, and I don't see anything great about it. I don't see anything to be proud about. Not when, you know, the death of community has been so severe that a blind, lonely, isolated guy can find no place in his community, and he certainly has no place in the hearts of politicians. It's just a statistic, just a number, you know. And the last time I really kind of like associate with being just a number is, you know, 1945 Germany, where you're just a number. And, you know, that's why I really care about making these photographs and really care about preserving the testimony, is because without that, everybody that's kind kind of like in the trenches and the front lines of these, of experiencing firsthand the results of policies made in Whitehall when they're written about in books or magazines. You know, you can go and look at any study, and it will say something like, you know, 330,000 attributable deaths to austerity, but it won't tell you their names. It won't tell you, you know, anything about the person. And as time kind of like washes past us, it's all forgotten. It's all forgotten. And certainly now that we live in a time where, you know, other poor people are getting as blamed as the most vulnerable people, you know, just seeing the rise of the far right just blowing my mind. It's so distressing for me. There needs to be you know, these accounts documented. And because I tell you what, if it wasn't for, you know, Mark, you making the work that you know all too well, you're kind of like photographing the scars left behind. You know, it's.
Well, you know, I photographed the English Defence League back in 2010, the Dutch organisation. So we're going to document the rise of populism, and I was like, "What's that?" And I googled it, being like, "Yeah, whatever. They're going to pay me for it. I'll do it." And it's just like, you know, it's great work. And I thought I'd make a book in my series, and I think I can't publish it. I can't publish it. The world's too far gone. I can't put
Maybe
that
that's
book out
why you
now.
should publish it, Ed.
No, I don't think I can, Jim. I think we're too far gone. I think we're like 2 years away from like me rebranding it and being like, look at these brave boys. You know what I mean? Like, seriously, it's so crazy. So, you know, although it's great, I mean, I've been basically publishing my work, going in my back catalogue, but like the past. So by this point, it's 2010, 2013. I was in my prime, baby. I was 30 to 33 when I made the work. It's really great photography, but I just don't think consciously I can put it out. Anyway, look, I found this when you were chatting there at the end, I was trying to find this quote. There's a quote, I think, attributed to Gandhi, and it says, "The true measure of any society can be found in how it treats its most vulnerable members." And I think that's the whole problem, man. We're in this very no compassion, heartless, self-centered, like, horror. And yeah, I feel like, I don't know, man. I feel like loads of people, like, they feel like they're NPCs, man. It feels like a video game, and they're just like malformed people who are still like worrying about what trainers they're wearing, like it's primary school.
Yeah,
Like,
I don't know. I just concentrate on the task at hand. It's the only thing I can do. I'm so compelled to do it.
How do you think, Jim? How do you think we can get more people to do work like yours? Not like yours, you know, but to,
well, you know, a massive
Jim, everyone. No, please.
Yeah, no, a massive inspiration for me was a lot of the, I guess you'd call it would you call it photo activism, but the community derived photography from the 1970s, 80s, stuff like Camera Work and the Exit Photography Group, you know, Paul Trevor, Nicholas Batty, survival programs in Britain's inner cities. Yeah, that's a great book. Yeah, exactly that thing. And I think that period of time was born out of the fact that it was pretty much before Thatcher had ended community. So photographers didn't have to seek something to photograph. They were already in it because they were still part of a community, So how would we get more people to care to make work? I think the only thing we can do is be as vocal as we can about the work as and when that we're making it. I mean, I probably get, I wouldn't want to hazard a guess at how many hundreds of emails I get a year. But out of all of them, you saw all the crap out from the 4 or 5 that are from, you know, younger photographers that are like, how can I do this? You know, so I mean, it might not be a great hit rate, but I guess the only thing that we can do, not as photographers, as just as people, is be extremely receptive and extremely giving to anybody that comes to us, saying, "How can I do this?" You know, I always made a massive point, because when I started, I didn't know anything. I didn't know anyone. So I was constantly like reaching out and asking people, well, how do you do this? Or what do I need to do that? And you know, on the whole, people were pretty guarded. Like they had their secret sauce, and oh no, I'm not going to tell you what f-stop I'm using, blah blah blah. And so I just thought, all right, I'll figure out myself. But that left a bit of a mark on me. You know, I was made aware really early of like the cliques and the little groups of people that just wanted to be a big fish in a small pond. So I guess that I've always really, anyone that writes to me asking anything for advice or whatever, they'll get more than they bargained for, because I'll just keep doing it.
That's good that you came up against that, because it's made you, not the kind of creatively the photographer you are, but the person as a photographer that you are, that as well as the kind of work you make, that you want to kind of share your knowledge. And the reason you do it isn't because you want to be an educator, but it's just you want other people to be able to do it as well. With whatever camera they have and with whatever's in front of them. And it's a really positive thing.
So much, Mark, of so much of the stuff that I do with photography, Mark, is circumstantial, I would say, or lived experience. So yeah, I lived through that experience. So that made me very aware that I would never want to be like that. So that's where, it's a reaction to the experience that I had. Even the marrying of text and image came from personal experience, because if I go right back to when I started and I was interviewing, and I wasn't interviewing, I was chatting with WH and making these photographs that seemed to make him happy. He loved them. I just asked myself a really simple question, because I was still very raw from being at the lowest ebb that I think I'd ever been at in my life. And I just thought to myself one night, well, if somebody made that photograph of that moment, they would never understand that which preceded it and that which is to come after it. So I guess that was what taught me what context was and why it matters. So yeah, I think the photographs that we make are kind of through us, but not necessarily. I've got no interest of leaving my fingerprints or anything. I would never want to do anything to get in the way of the viewer person in the photograph relationship. I take it back to painting. Never have I looked at a painting and thought to myself, oh, I wonder where Francis Bacon was standing when he did this. I just see the painting. And so the one thing that I always wanted to do was, for me, it's about amplification and transposition. How can I kind of pick this person up who might have no experience of any of this and put them in that room with that testimony, and then make them, for me, it's all about, can I make something that's an empathy generator?
But you're putting yourself in some ways, you are putting yourself completely in the picture by making, but in a good way, because you're making the picture. But the positive thing is because you're making the picture that, and I don't mean it because you chose to compose it and all that crap like that, but it's because you're making the work and you've chosen to make the work, and you've chosen to make it in a way that is empathetic and sensitive. It's not slapping people across the face with and stuff like that. And that's why only you can make this work.
Yeah. You're right. I would say likewise. One question I'd really like to ask you, Mark, is because although we make very different work, I feel like it's very similar in a lot of ways as well, certainly in the behind the scenes. Were you as foolish as I was in the arrogance of youth to think that it wouldn't mess you up?
Yeah, pretty much. My work is, unlike the work I've just done recently is kind of different, but the more kind of documentary based work I do, I've always kind of thrown myself into it completely and utterly. And I've found that easy to do because I've always done work about things that I care about.
Yeah.
Like with the Wounded Landscape, work about the Holocaust and all the work about Ukraine, stuff like that. It's things that I'm, for want of a better word, things I'm passionate about, because they're conversations that I want to both have with people, my audience. but stimulating other people to have with each other and stuff like that.
Mm.
So I've always kind of thrown myself headlong into it. And the first kind of major documentary style work I did was the work about the Holocaust. And I didn't know too much about it, which was one of the kind of points of the story, you know, because we've got, you know, my family's Jewish and we had X number of people that were murdered in those times. But I had no idea about their histories and stuff. I didn't really know much about the general histories, to be honest, let alone my own personal kind of family histories. So I didn't know how I'd feel when I made the work. I didn't know how it would affect me when I made the work. But I remember when I started on it, speaking with my mum and her cousin who lives in Geneva, and she works with lots of Holocaust survivors, you know, like basically trauma survivors. And they kind of, not putting me off making work, but they tried to encouraging me to think about what I was going to do and how it may affect me. And I had a kind of fairly young kid at the time, so like that. Yeah, but that just made me want to do it even more, but not in an arrogant way. Well, you know, I'm okay, I can do it. No bravado at all, but more in that I could see how important it was.
Yes.
And so I kind of made that decision early on, just to kind of do everything, whatever. And I had no expectations of what I may come across. I had absolutely zero preparation in terms of expectations of how it may make me feel. And in some ways that was quite good, because it meant I didn't put any barriers up. And so I let myself just kind of fall into the work that I was making. But at the same time, I did it in quite without kind of realizing it, maybe I think it was the right way, but I did it in quite a structured way that, and maybe in a way I was a bit of a chicken as well, but I didn't want to meet with people immediately. I wanted to go and see an amount of places where these events had happened with my own eyes, so that I could almost like experience it for the first time, you know, from now, obviously not trying to experience it from the perspective of the history and the event, but just to see how it would affect me as an individual, and which I knew that would then reflect in my photographs, because I always take the photographs in the way that I'm feeling, you know, at any given moment. And it was, I'm not allowed to swear, but it was horrible. You know, I went to like place after place after place after place, and every single place I went to, I was just faced with these these kind of particular moments in history of things that I'd heard about, or, you know, read on surface reports about and stuff like that, but never been within a space, and never therefore put those two things together. You know, I'd read about numbers in books and I'd heard about certain places, but when you go to an actual space and you bring a certain amount of knowledge to it, and then you read a small plaque on the floor, and the plaque says, and it was like I remember this one was like it was a garden, like a vegetable garden, at the guards of one of these death camps, and the plaque said how the vegetables they were fertilized by the ashes of the incinerated prisoners. And I had no idea about these little details, but I remember that because I was in that space and I read that plaque, it was like just getting hit around the face. But at this exactly the same time, it made me realize, if this is striking me in this way, and it's making me, you know, want to cry and throw up and all that kind of stuff, then that's what I have to make photographs do, because I wanted the reader. And yeah, I think like yourself, I like to talk about readers as opposed to viewers of my work. That's what I wanted the reader to feel when they look at my photographs. And that's why, like you, the text is so important to me. The context is everything. You know, otherwise I don't want to have to explain the pictures too much. I want the context and the picture to work together in that way.
Yes.
So I didn't kind of prepare myself for how it may affect me. But what I found happened that over the 6 years I was making that particular piece of work is that I'd go away, excuse me, I'd go away for kind of 2-3 weeks at a time. And just throw myself into the work. You know, I had a long list of locations I wanted to go to, and I start at the first one, and I never knew how many I was actually going to get to, depending on how long, you know, it took to make the work at each one. And because I was throwing myself into the work so much, nothing would affect me enough to stop me making the work whilst I was there. It would affect me on an individual basis at each location. It would, like, horrors you're confronted with, and the horrors are both on kind of, you know, a mass scale of, you know, how can humanity be capable of this kind of thing on, you know, industrial levels. But, you know, we've seen it every day since in various levels in all parts of the world. But also taking those real individual elements that once I'd started meeting with people and they'd shared their stories with me, that I was then taking the words that they had shared with me into these places. And therefore I could not only see the present, but I could visualize the past as well by the excuse me, like the description of events that had happened to them and that they'd witnessed in those locations.
Did staggering it like that and timetabling it, did that stop it building up to a crescendo that really, because I guess
completely, because what would happen is that I'd go away for those 2 weeks and I'd come back, and then I'd have like this, and it was every single time happened, there'd be this mass release of emotion. And it was weird. It was always music that did it. I'd be like in my car driving somewhere completely randomly, and some totally unrelated piece of music would come on the radio or whatever. You know, nothing historical in the music, but there'd be something. And I love music in that way. There'd be something in the emotional pull and tug of a song or a lyric or whatever, or, you know, the way it sounded, that would just set me off completely. And whatever kind of road I was on, whether it was like a tiny little lane in Norfolk somewhere, it's like the M25, I just had to pull to the side, and for 10, 50 minutes, I would just, floods of tears would come out. And it was for all those things, excuse me, the tears were always for those things that I had seen and the people that I knew were connected to them and stuff like that. So every trip I went on, I'd have that kind of release. But the whole time I was making the work, I remember really clearly remembering how lucky I was as well. You know, that I could go to these places and I could walk out of them. You know, at the end of the day, I'd made my work and I could walk out through those gates, or I could walk away, but drive away from that village or that pit on the side of the road, whatever. And I could go and stay in my nice, you know, cheap, but photographically quite nice hotel and stuff like that. And you've all seen the pictures of those. So I never lost that sight of being ridiculously lucky that I could go to these places and walk away from it. And I think that combined with the feeling of how important it was to make this piece of work, and hoping that I was doing it in the right way, obviously, the importance of being able to make a piece of work so I could retell these stories and talk about that kind of stuff. It just kind of kept me going.
It's a classic, brilliant thing for documentary photography to do in particular. Obviously, Joel Sternfeld's on this site, an incredible series of photographs of, like, you see like an innocuous room, and it's like a red room in like some community hall. Oh, this is where the Bloods and the Crips like settled their feud. Or there's like, oh, here's a street. Oh, this is where the Unabomber set off a bomb. And you're looking at all these locations, trying to marvel at what happened, and that's incredible. But have you guys ever seen that book before?
Not that one, no.
I haven't.
Okay, so Joel Sternfeld on this site, it's like, every page is like a landscape or an interior or something, and you read the tiny caption that's like a paragraph, and it just blows your mind, because it's like, some of it's horrific, some of it's horrible. This is where, you know, a shipping container where like 30 Chinese refugees starved to death, or, you know, like really, really heavy stuff. But it's the interplay of that image then looking back. And obviously it's all to do with psychogeography, right? So here's something I've been thinking about a lot, is that I feel like right now in 2025, I feel like photography needs to get beyond allegory. I feel like it's all become too much is at stake to just be sort of gentle in that way. And, you know, I just give the example of the conceptual artist. So there's a tragic thing of the baby swept ashore. Is it somewhere in Greece? The refugee baby on the beach. So Ai Weiwei, the conceptual Chinese artist, took a photo of themselves lying on the floor to kind of make a point, and it's raising awareness. And I found it like offensive. And I feel like a lot of the stuff we can do with photography, it doesn't need to be allegory. Like if we can get ourselves in the right places at the right time, and I'm talking about photojournalism here, then, you know, you really can affect change. Like,
I'll tell you the one phrase that's really always got under my skin. It's I can remember when people started saying it, and I was like, what are you talking about? And it was the whole post-truth thing. We're now in the post-truth phase. No, bullshit. Just... I can't swear. I can't swear.
But we kind of are, because like we brought it up earlier, that shot of the woman in Gaza with the starving child, the people on the right were immediately like, oh yeah, but the child had a pre-existing condition. Oh, it doesn't count. Oh, they're not really starving. Yet the, you know, United Nations right now, it's like, was it IC level 5 catastrophe? Like it's happening.
Oh yeah, but that's audience. What I'm talking about is for the actual photographer,
right?
To embrace this idea that they now exist in a post-truth world. Therefore, somehow it gives them a blank map to carve out their way to become the focal point of other people's stories.
I got you.
I've always said that All right, I know I'm a
photographers
photographer.
being assholes because they're
Yes.
not good enough. You know.
Yeah.
Well, it's back
They
to the
can't find
camera.
the-
It's back to the which way is the camera pointing. We're back to that one.
Yeah.
Mark,
Yeah.
if I might, I just wanted to say the reason I really wanted to hear that from you is because that's a really good lesson that I would have liked to have been taught. I was literally saying it the other day. I can remember the very first public speaking talk thing that I ever did, and it was in Brighton. It was for Jim Stevenson's awesome Click Click Gym. There was a night there, and I went down and did it. And afterwards, it went really well. Afterwards, somebody said, "Well, how does it affect you? And how do you look after yourself?" And at this point, I was about, I don't know, 3 or 4 years in, and I was like, "Well, I don't think about that at all. I'm just moving forwards. I've got to," because you start. I mean, for my experiences, I feel literally like I'm embedded in a front line of a conflict that doesn't use bullets and bombs or blades. But there are fatalities nonetheless. A policy can result in a death, I would argue, as quickly and as humanly distant as like a B-45 carpet bombing from 20,000 feet. That's the removal politicians have with their policies.
Well, they're saying that the cancelling of USAID has already killed 90,000 children. So,
they can make those decisions easily because they're so far away, and
Exactly.
it has no effect on them or their families and stuff
Absolutely.
like that.
So that's another functional reason I think this work has to be made, because we have to represent what it's like on the ground when these policies or bombs or philosophies land. But for me, because I actually live it as well, because I'm a unpaid carer, and I've had to go through some savage times and seeing how that affects my elderly disabled parents. Things like the switch from DLA to PIP, where basically the policy was, if you're disabled, prove it to us. You have to prove it to us now. So you have to be interviewed. And that, I never thought I'd see so many people with life-altering illness, so terrified. So terrified. A common thing that was and is said to me is, I feel like I'm waiting for the sound of jackboots to come outside and march upstairs, and I'm having nightmares about being dragged out of the bed I've been in for 30 years and just dragged outside and shot. And that's just from, something as supremely idiotically, bureaucratically foolish as prove to me that you can't walk, prove to me that you do have, the stress that caused, the suicide rate is unbelievable about that. Now I know that, like I say, I'm not, in a trench somewhere like it's 1919 with bullets whizzing over my head, but the stress of living it, but also surrounding myself with a community, albeit one that's marginalized. And I didn't realize that if you do that for 10 years and you take no breaks, something breaks. But something spectacularly broke about 3 years before I finished the first book. Essentially, I won't go into mad detail, but I had a 3-year panic attack without really understanding what was going on. And the one thing that made me feel cool about it was that if you know the band The Counting Crows, Adam Duritz had the same thing. It's called depersonalization. You essentially have so much stress, you feel like you're in a movie. It's like a really bad acid trip, and you can't stop it. And it's terrifying, absolutely terrifying. But being a typical moron, didn't do anything about it, continued going out, not knowing that was all making it
Building up
more and more, worse, until I was done. I had to go to the doctor,
The thing is, you can't stop yourself from making work.
No.
If you're doing work you think, and not just, you think, but work that is so important, You have to keep making it because you worry that if you stop, the positives of it will stop.
Yes,
and that's why, like, you know, I used to take my first work was like 4 years, and then I had a break, and then Wounded Landscape was 6 years. And it used to be that I would then finish a piece of work and I'd be like, now what do I do now? But now I got work coming out of everywhere. You know, I'm just finishing this new one, and I've got 2 new bodies of work that I'm wanting to start.
And there's also the constant, I would say, guardianship of the work that you've made. You know, for me, you know, it's kind of like the responsibility doesn't stop when you click a shutter. It's literally lifelong.
Just the beginning. Yeah,
it's just the beginning, and it's that constant aftercare. So you know, I can remember when I had solo show at Side Gallery, and it was mind blowing. That was like a, you know, I don't set myself too many like that would be cool things, but that was one because Amberside had been really influential upon me, and I can remember when I got there, because that was one of the times I was actually able to go, you know, get out and go to the opening. I had a huge panic attack because it was the first time I'd ever been surrounded by all of that work. And you know what it's like with openings and stuff. Everybody's like really pumped and really excited, and
apart from you, you're like in the corner again. Yeah.
Well, it was like, because you are there in those moments, you have the actual things that you were feeling, you know, because I don't make photographs removed from caring, being there 100% as a human being, but they're also almost always in the middle of a conversation. You know, there's what's happening that day is, so I can look at any one of my photographs and go, well, I know that this was the day that, you know, so-and-so's benefits were stopped, or that this was the day they got the letter from the doctors, and it hit me like a tsunami, this kind of like deafening roar of, God, there's so much pain on these walls. And I was there. And I know the work must exist, but personally it was so it was so I don't spend a lot of time like looking back at my work, only when I have to, you know, like I've had to do it for this revised copy of book 1, and obviously I've had to do it a lot for book 2. I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I learned the hard way that if you don't force yourself to take a little break, and like a little break for me might be, you know, for 10 years I would go out after a 16-hour shift at home, which was mostly dealing with seizures. Then probably some moron on Twitter had a go at me. Then I'd walk into town and I'd sit down with somebody at rock bottom, they being at rock bottom, make an interview, make maybe 3 or 4 photographs, come home, do all the transcriptions, edit all the work, put it straight away onto social media, then do that guardianship thing. And I did that non-stop for a decade. And I look back and I go, yeah, that's why you needed an MOT.
Yeah, but good job you were younger, Jim.
Well, I wasn't that much younger, but yeah.
My point is that look, I'm a big fan of Gary's Economics. I don't know if you know the YouTube channel.
I just asked him to write an intro for the book.
I'm just right on the serendipity here, man. We're loving it. So so my point is, he did a thing recently saying about how he had a massive breakdown.
Yeah.
And like, you know, I'm not going to get into it too much here.
Yeah.
But like, I do feel like if you've ever gone through anything like that, the fact you go through it and come out the other side, it is a bit like being cast in the fires. And I do feel it sets you up to be a bit more Herculean if you get through it. It's by no means, you know, everyone's not going to get through it. If you can get through it, I swear, man, you are.
It's almost like a rite of passage at this point. It's quite...
I thought you had found a way, Jim. So about, I think it's maybe 2-3 years ago. And if you look at the screen, it kind of gives it away a little bit as to why I once in a while make topographic work. Is that you started taking some more landscape photographs. And, you know, my landscapes aren't landscapes, they're documentary work still. It just happens to be in the landscape.
Yeah.
But it was almost like you're kind of making that work, and it gives you a little chance to breathe a little bit. It's very Don McCullum, obviously.
I've mentioned this to Jim before.
No spoilers, but whether or not it manifests itself as volume 3 or it's just another book that's the third to do with all of this, landscapes are going to play a huge role in it, because I've done so much work that's interiors, and I think that's really important because it matches the oppression of the situation. But a fundamental thing to me is how, and I'm not coming this from in any way a political angle, just an observational one, that how quickly a little town in England can completely change. And it's not through migration, it's through the invasion of corporations. You know, the landscape here has changed so much and is continuing at breakneck speed to forever be changed. Fields disappearing to become, you know, cardboard new build, affordable housing that starts at £300,000. We've got 8 supermarkets in a 3-mile radius. We've got McDonald's. We've got, or you name them all, we've got them. 15 years ago, it was all mom and pop stores, and that was it. Sleepy little market town in Norfolk. So a lot of I've got this idea in mind for the third thing that I do that will probably take me another 7 years because it's circumstantial again, but that will just be portraits and landscapes and long format testimony. And it's to really, I've got it in my head that on one dimension, it's like my love letter to all of the people that I've collaborated with for all of this time. So to make like really ace portraits with them. And the landscape element is to really drive home the change, you know, because again, once it's gone forever. You know, there's no going back. And I find all that quite fascinating. So
well, that's what, you know, that kind of work can do. The images can be like a monument to a period of time.
I think they all are.
A monument to a past in that way.
They all are. But one thing's for sure, making landscapes is a lot less stressful. You know?
Yeah, so I
don't have a cut-off with anyone that I photograph. Yeah. Everyone that I've ever photographed, barring them passing away, I still keep in contact with. I talk to every other day. Which is, you know, like I said, you know, I asked somebody really famous to write an intro to the book, and they've done it, which is great. And then I was cheeky enough to go back and say, do you mind if I change the word subject?
Oh, subjects, yes, we love a subject. I did a bit in a video of Monty Python where it did it. Yeah. Oh wow, good.
You know, if there's one, no, words have meaning, right? And the whole thing of like, just. I don't
shoot your subjects. You know, it's like,
it's just, how do you, you know, what
but
have you been
in
with my subject, the Holocaust survivor, and you think, what the it's insane. And that's something that I think needs to get out of photography. You know, they're my community. They're my friends now. They're like my family now. They're other human beings. I don't know where this whole subject,
but, you know, also at the same time, guys, right, I've seen like some guy online doing big things about, oh, you shouldn't take photos, that's aggressive and all this shit. They're just words we make, they're sounds we make with our mouth, right? And if we're really getting into it, I think what is happening in those images is more important than the weird sounds we use to describe them. I think, you know, if someone's not really, you know, hitting the right words or whatever, it's in the work, right?
I think that I think it's more this, Ed, that some, like the rise of citizen journalism, which is almost 100% right wing, that's terrifying to me. All you have to do is jump on YouTube. The only reason I'm saying this is because they did it in Norwich, which is like 14 miles from me. They are so active with GoPros and gimbals and live streaming these protests outside migrant hotels, like 2-3 hour long broadcasts. I don't see anything opposed. Like, I don't see the alternative from the other political side of things. And this idea that, you know, when you're like a self-appointed citizen journalist and you hear the word subject, that gets built into like somebody that doesn't have, let's say, the prudence or the care to really sit down and think about their relationship into that which they document, and then it can make them. In the realm of photography, it would be, you know, the human safari that street photography's become.
Yeah.
Right. The idea that the word subject comes...
Well, traditionally you'd hear people say subject matter. There's the matter, and I think the matter does matter, doesn't it? Subject matter.
Yeah, no, absolutely. But I do think the way that people relate to words also changes. So I think a lot of people see the photographer as at the top of the pile, and then everything else comes below. And I'm not talking about...
I don't know if most people even see the photograph. I show my girls photos I've taken, right, on an assignment last week, and they're like, "Where are you?" And I'm like, "I'm the one taking the photo." I think most people don't even, they're just not even... Dude, the amount of times people have seen my photos in Chernobyl, and they're like, "Oh, you went to Chernobyl?" It's like, yeah, I had to take the photos. I think you're giving people too much credit, man. I really do.
Well, I guess I'm saying it because I see it in the work. I see the photographer and the attitude of the photographer more than I see that which they're taking a picture of, which to me is a massive disservice.
Yeah, but there's a whole slew of advertising photographers who found advertising photographer is, you know, it's getting down and down, AI is coming, whatever. A lot of them have slipped into documentary photography. So what you see is very much all look Alex Sophian documentary projects, and it's basically everyone's being told where to sit, where to stand, where to go. It's curated like an advertising campaign, and yet they call it documentary. I mean, that's the kind of work I think that I see in my head with what you're saying.
Yeah, I'd certainly agree with you there. That's a fact.
But, you know, that's very popular because also they do get very slick images, and the images do look great, and they will win photo awards. But there's a big difference between like you going in someone's house and room and following them around, and then you taking them somewhere in particular and dressing them a certain way, and like documentary filmmakers going through their clothes and saying, "Oh, could you wear this outfit today?" That's literally what they do.
Well, it's normally the lighting that gives that away. I mean, if I'm lucky, I work with a light bulb and/or one window or curtains that are closed. And if you look at a photograph and you know that there's like 10 light sources behind, you can
gives it away a bit.
You can see, you can spot that really quickly, which is kind of sad because I don't know. It's just that sure as hell ain't documentary to me.
No, but then, you know, I lost out a documentary photography of the year award to a photographer who bravely added fake photos to their real photos, and they won. And that happened. And that's a reality of the world we live in. So, you know, that's where we're at, gentlemen. That's where we're at.
I have stories about losing. Yeah, I'll tell you that one off camera, but man, I still hate the guy.
So, Mark, look, I've seen this photo languishing in front of us for like 17 minutes.
God, that's fine. How can I talk about this work after Jim's
backstory to this image now?
we just spoken about.
Did you plant this tree at the start of us chatting? Is that what happened?
Yeah, and then I've been lighting it for years. Smoke machines, mist machines, all that stuff.
But Jim,
it's kind of like
Jim, thank you. Just say thank you. Obviously, we're going to keep going and Mark.
No. I'm just
we're just sitting and shining or whatever. We've been chatting for an hour 20 at this point, and I think I only get 2 hours free with the streaming service. So I just
I'll talk quick. But it's basically, you know, it's exactly what we're talking about, Jim. The reason, you know, it's no surprise. So my first work, you know, was The Last Stand. It's subject based, not people, but around subject matter, Ed, as you like to say. But it's kind of topographic work, but documentary topographic work. And then, you know, I made my work, Windy Landscape, which is 6 years making work about the Holocaust. And then after that, I went back to make another topographic work in Italy, in the mountains there. And it was reason because it was interesting work, and someone asked me to you know, collaborate with them on it. But there was that kind of reason of kind of soothing my soul a little bit after what I had experienced for those 6 years. And then the last 3 years I've been working on, you know, with my wife on work about Ukraine. And again, there it's always about people, you know, and very personal work as well, because that's what I know, you know, my own experiences there. And the two works I'm going to start again now are, you know, one of them is kind of beyond horrific. And then it's kind of going back to the Holocaust again. And then there's another work in Ukraine that we want to make. And we're just trying to find out the logistics of, you know, because we've got a 3.5-year-old, can we take him with us, or is he, you know, and where can he go there that's safe, which is kind of everywhere and nowhere at the same time. We don't want to leave him here by himself, obviously, and stuff like that. And I can't go and make that work by myself because it's my wife's country. and I'm not going to be the first one to go back there out of the two of us after 3.5 years, you know.
Yeah.
But that was kind of one of the reasons why I've made this work that's been languishing on your screen here for 20 minutes now. It was a bit of a kind of, not an in-between work, it's the wrong word, but it was that kind of downtime almost from my documentary work for my head in a way. And it's work that I've wanted to make for quite a while. It's something I kind of looked at years ago about industry and documentary work and the landscape and how the two things are combined in that way. And it was a couple of years ago when I was kind of finishing off one of my Ukrainian works that I kind of went for a walk to one of these places. And the actual process of going for the walk was really nice because it was so windy and so wet and so rainy that it just kind of blew everything away. And it really kind of focused my mind in some ways on just one foot after the other without falling over. And it felt like to me that it was the right time to make that work. So it's strange. It's kind of, and someone asked me this in an interview I did the other day, is this work a continuation of my themes or is it something very new? And it's much, or it could be taken, I guess, as much more landscape work because the subject matter itself is the landscape. Whereas the more recent topographic work I've done is where it's very much objects that, you know, we've placed or we've affected in the landscape that way. Whereas this work, it's the landscape itself, but it's not a landscape that's completely natural. It's a landscape that's both natural and man-made. And it's done that way through the byproduct of industry. And that's what I felt was interesting. And, you know, there's huge amounts of really amazing kind of much more straight documentary work that's been made around communities and the effect of, you know, disappearing or destroyed industries and all the political reasons, the social realities and the social repercussions and stuff like that. And what was important with me to this work is that I didn't try and touch on that in my photography because that work already exists. And I wanted to make a piece of work that was almost standing back and just showing us these landscapes as they are today to create, again, like what we were talking about before, Jim, to create these monuments of time. And so all the landscapes that you see in the work, they're all landscapes that are that combination of the natural environment, but then also the man-made environment, mostly through kind of byproduct.
They're so beautiful.
Not wanted anymore. Yeah, and that was important to me, you know.
The thing that I took from them was that it's like you're photographing the scars of where man has been.
Yeah.
And there's something so heartbreaking. I find them really emotional.
That's why, you know, I went, it's the way I do all my work, because I always kind of, you know, do tests and stuff like that and try and find the visual for it. And I didn't really have a particular visual in mind for this work. You know, I went to some locations and I started looking at what was interesting. And the first thing that struck me is what wasn't interesting to me. And what I found completely uninteresting was the buildings themselves. You know, and they're, you know, some of them are kind of preserved and some of them are museums and some of them are crumbling into the landscape and stuff like that. But that was of no interest to me because it didn't really say anything to me. Because I know those things will disappear. You know, they'll be pulled down or the rocks will be taken somewhere else.
Somebody would stand a nude next to them and call it art.
Exactly, stuff like that, which has been done a lot, I'm sure. And what I found is that I wanted to look past that and look at the stuff that you wouldn't know is there and you wouldn't know is anything, you know, but it's very much a man-made in combination with natural object. And this is the stuff that's going to be there forever. You know, to me, this is the monument of industry and stuff like that. And it was also, I started making the work in winter and it was just dark and it was wet and I was a bit depressed. And it kind of made me think of the end of the world a bit, unfortunately, as I was making this work, because it really made me think that this is all that's going to be left. You know, once I'm sorry, Ed, I have to swear, but once we fuck up the whole planet, day by day, in every possible way that we can imagine, even though we know we're doing it, when we carry on doing it day after day after day, whether it's on a kind of human interaction level or it's on a physical level, you know, we'll be gone. Our buildings will shatter and disappear and disintegrate. We'll be long, long gone. But this is what will be left. And in some ways, that's what I'm trying.
Part of you that kind of thinks, well, at least the planet will have a break then.
Yeah, because it's beautiful. You know, these places are amazing. And the strange thing is that there's these amazing places that, you know, nature's an amazing thing, but they're man-made as well. And so is this a legacy that we're going to leave? But then obviously the stupid thing is that this legacy is completely based on destruction.
Yeah.
You know,
they truly are scars in the real sense. It's really strange seeing this work next to the work that I've been making, because it's kind of like all the 1970s dystopian sci-fi kind of like films I used to watch as a kid. It's like, Jesus Christ, so we're actually making work of that actually transpire. There's an amazing film from 1971 called No Blade of Grass. And it's kind of like this dystopic vision of England, and there's this thing where crops won't grow, so everybody goes completely banana. It's like Mad Max in Sussex, for want of a better thing. But I'm looking at these photographs, and I'm like, that's so strange that, you know, this you're photographing the world from that film, you know, and it's like
without realizing it.
Yeah, and if we
can
don't,
I be a clever dick and say the word Anthropocene?
Anthropocene, yeah. You know, mate, I went through so many titles for this project.
So Zed Nelson's new book is The Anthropocene Illusion. I don't know if you're aware of that, on the Zeitgeist. The only thing I had a few titles. The only thing I fear of all this stuff is that we get into that whole thing. It's easier to imagine like a zombie holocaust and the end of humanity as we know it than an alternative to capitalism. And that's the thing that keeps coming around in my head is like, in a weird way, if we just keep playing up these kind of like extinction of humanity fantasies, it just drives people with loads of money to think, yeah, let's just go to Mars, when actually it's like, we can save this, you know, we can save this, it's still possible.
I think the planet will save itself. I don't know about us,
but I'm just saying it's like, you know,
hell,
it would be nice, Ed, if we do that
on repeating history. You know,
but
I can't believe we're
like,
still making the same mistakes that we made 100 years ago or 50 years ago, just as a species. Just the situation in Ukraine, seeing that footage, knowing that my granddad, you know, was on the beach at D-Day fighting fascists, and the stuff that you can see, you know, not on mainstream media, but that we all know is out there. I'm like, it's so disrespectful to all of that loss of life, you know, that's still, 80 years ago? You know, it's not even...
It's a tiny fragment away. You know, you think back, Jim, you're what, 50 odd? You think to when you were born.
Yeah.
And that stuff is, what, 30 years before
so I think most people
don't
actually make those connections, guys. They're incapable of joining those dots. For instance, in Ramsgate, we had the celebration of the little ship sailing off to Dunkirk to rescue the soldiers, right? My granddad was there. My Irish granddad, he was there, right? And they all do this big celebration. They all dress up. It's great. The one flotilla trying to break the siege in Gaza to bring like baby formula and medicine to like starving people is stopped. And then I think, what's her name? Albanese? I forgot her name now. The UN special reporter for Palestine said, we need 1,000-ship flotilla. And I thought, I'm probably the only person in the world who's made that connection between like the little ships and a flotilla of like aid ships. Like they just, you know, I don't think most people even think like that, which is kind of depressing. But
I think most people think they can't change anything and they can't make a difference.
Well, that's to do with the me individualism thing. So if everyone's an individual and me, I can't change it, so nothing can be done. Whereas when we had community, it was like, we can change this. We're a community. But we're now little Black Mirror people, me, and it's unable to join it again, get everyone together to say, yes, we can do stuff. So again, that's ultimately kind of, we could sort that out. That'd be cool.
It'd be nice.
To the point, though, you know, you look at the marches against the fascists, you know, in like 50s, 60s, whatever, and then you look at some of the like counter demonstrations that's gone on, you know, kind of recently against the far right demonstrations here in England, and there is hope for stuff like that.
Yes,
it needs to be, but there needs to be bigger. You know, we need to. I don't know how we can stop things. You know, I'm like, you know, my next pieces of work are going to be again about the murder of millions of people. You know, and about abduction of children and stuff like that. And how can we stop these things from happening? It's really, we all know as individuals, but how can we get together? You know, how can we get together and stop what's happening in Gaza? Because it's so, you know, it's so atrocious. No?
I think,
and then you look in Sudan, it's so atrocious. In
But it's
Syria,
the truth thing.
everywhere, it's just terrible.
There's always vested interests who, the minute you pull up something and they're like, oh no, black is white, white is black. And I didn't get to say it earlier, but essentially it was the thing about post-truth. Like, through the destruction of objective truth, we destroy good. Good is.
Do you know what I think the answer
without truth?
Do you know what I think the answer actually is? Is unfortunately you have to look at history. And I think the only thing that will bring forth anything better than the hell that we're witnessing now, because, you know, it blows my mind that I'm making photographs that look no different than what Nick Hedges made in 1970. Nothing's changed for the poor. It's the same power. It's the same policies. It's the same difference. You talk about it globally with all of the conflict. I mean, sad to say, but it's probably going to take something catastrophic, like a huge world-spanning natural disaster or a world war where millions and millions and millions so literally something that touches firsthand everybody's life to wake them out of this sleepwalk, and then it would be to rebuild. Because
no, but then we're falling back into Elon Musk's wet dream, Jim. That you can't have that. I'm sorry, I'm not allowing it.
That's the problem, Jim, is that until people's own personal daily lives are touched and affected by these things, you know, they'll wring their hands, they'll smash the bottom of the pot and stuff like that. Yeah. But they won't. Right. But but nothing gets done about it. Yeah. You know, until it's on your doorstep.
The 80-20 rule says you only need to shift 20% of people's opinions to change shit. You don't have to change everyone. Just 20%.
Isn't that the whole prime reason we're all sat here talking about photography? Because, you know, that's what, at least that we're trying.
That's the thing that we can do. So we do it, which is great.
It's a proactive thing.
Yeah. But everyone has a skill, you know, everyone can do something. But most people are just, and it's not about being good or bad at it. It's about having the balls to do it, or having the energy, or just not being so lazy that you just let things slide and let things go by. You know.
I was to say this really quickly. Sometimes at the end of talks, I get asked, what advice would you have for students? And my advice is go and check on a neighbor. Start there. It might sound trite and flippant, but I really bloody mean it. It's like, if you can't even do that, if you're that enclosed in your own little like narcissistic bubble that you can't care about somebody within your literally arm's reach in proximity, how do you ever expect to care enough about anything to devote 2 years, 5 years, 7, 10, 50, your life to? Anyway, I'll leave it with that.
Can we just say, guys, for the long term? Sorry, Mark. Sorry.
Well, it's like we all have a voice, you know.
Yes.
And whether your voice is to spend 10 years making a piece of work, you know, or it's to exactly as you talk about, Jim, just to go and check out Alan next door, you know, you got just got to use it. You know, we're given these skills as human beings, and so many of us are just either too lazy, or too wrapped up in trying to look good, or too wrapped up in trying to do what we think other people think we should do. You know,
you must have seen Manufactured Consent, yeah?
No.
The documentary, it's like a 3.5 hour documentary on Noam Chomsky.
If I can ever find 3.5 hours, I'll let you know.
Noam and I share the same birthday.
Have you seen it, Ed?
Uncle Noam, it's the day of your birth. Uncle Noam, Uncle Noam, Uncle Noam.
Ed, have you seen Manufacturing Consent?
I have not, but I've seen the film where they sing Happy Birthday to Noam Chomsky.
No, you need to go and see it, because it's all about how do you keep society an open air prison, and people just continuing to be ignorant cogs in a larger machine.
Well, better education helps, nutrition helps, so people and just survival. I mean, it wasn't long ago, gentlemen, that one person in a family could earn one income and everyone was fine, and they'd have 2 cars and holidays every year. And now you've got people where it's like everyone's working 2 jobs and you're barely able to keep the wolf from the door. So that's all the other thing is, how can you care about someone on the other side of the world when you're worried about, if I don't get paid this month, how am I going to pay the rent? Like, that's where we're at. That's how.
But that's the thing. You have to learn to do both.
Which comes back to Gary's economics, inequality, baby. We need to spearhead all this other shit and just focus on inequality. If we can do that, I think that's a really good shout. That seems to be the big thing that would just equalize it all. So there we go.
Somebody needs to start a political party.
And on a joke, can I just say, I spoke to a photographer recently who said that a long form project, he said, I was going to do a long form project. I said, how long is that going to be? He said 6 months.
You got to start somewhere.
I love it.
I'm trying to be positive.
I was like, oh, it's six months, yeah? Oh, yeah. All right. No, I'm kidding though. It's still great, but I just find it funny where you were like Dr. Manhattan in Watchmen, where projects like span eons and you don't even know when they're going to end. You just commit to them, and you're like, I don't know when it's going to finish.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, Mark, I'm so sorry. I quickly made the PDF, and I've somehow done this creative.
Not at all. It's absolutely fine.
Can you tell us about this one?
I just like having interesting conversations, and with you two guys, it's great. I'm not here to talk about my own work.
Oh, this has got a pony. Tell us about the pony, Mark.
Well, it's not very often I have animals in my photos, but it was there, to be honest. And it's like, I think it's one of the things. This isn't a long form work; it's just 2 winters, you know. But as you go to location after location, you start to have ideas of what you want your work to look at. You know, how you want to frame it and compose it, so it will tell the things that you want to speak about. And then it's nice to let things change as you go along. I like to not be too structured in my work. I like to know exactly what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to do. But I've always been up for, you used the word before, Ed, it's a great word, serendipity. And talking of which, I can hear my kid coming up the stairs. Not opening this door, that's good. I like to let things happen, you know, and there would have come a time, you know, 10 years ago when if I'd been making this work, I would have sat there for 3 hours trying to wait for the pony to move. But he's got way more right to be there than I do. You know, and he's a part of the scene, and it was, you know, it kind of went along with that idea, because I think this has been, you know, when I was starting to get a bit depressed about what I was looking at and what this may be monumentalizing and showing us a vision of a kind of dark dystopian future, is that, you know, except for the food, the pony would still be there, but we wouldn't. So it seemed like the right thing to leave it there.
What are we looking at here in respect to the industry that was?
So this is an old slate quarry.
Shall I make it full screen? Shall I make it
Yeah.
big? Let's make it big for a minute. There we go.
Okay. So yeah, it's a slate quarry in Dartmoor. So the whole work is based around industry. There's about 40 or 50 locations throughout the UK, and it's a big variety of different types of industry over a kind of 300-400 year period. And this is one of those places there. So this is we're doing, and like I've done in all my work, there's lots of research gone into it. So we have captions with each photograph, right, and the captions will give you information, you know, some factual, some just more interesting information, whether it's about that specific location and events that happen there, or about the industry and the location in general in that way. So it kind of builds that, in some ways it builds that historical picture. But it's something that I'm trying to do with this work, different to my other topographical work, is that the way I made the work was in a much more kind of lyrical way, and that's kind of how I felt as I made the work. And
very painfully, Mark.
But yeah, that's kind of what I felt. Thank you, Jim.
They really look like paintings. It's just, I mean, I spent like 7 years studying art. I know my art history inside and out. And I'm looking at this and I'm like, Jesus Christ. You know,
I think it came from the walks to the places that, you know, each one was, you know, like a 30-minute walk. Oh, can you excuse me for 1 second? Jim, you and Ed talk to each other, okay? I'm going to be back in 1 minute. Is that cool, Ed?
Yeah, no, of course,
yeah,
man.
right.
Yeah,
In a sec.
You know, if you can screen share, I've got a pony picture as well.
I've got a pony picture.
Have you got a pony picture?
I've got a pink pony club.
It's a good chat, man.
I've got it on a card here somewhere. Have I got it? There we go. Look, there we go. There we go. Where is it? There you go. Pink Pony Club. Pink Pony Club.
Hey.
I'm gonna look.
That's so strange. We've all taken pictures, or we've all actually, to use the correct terminology, as discussed with Grant this week, we've all received pictures of white ponies.
Yeah, but dude, man, like I've been photographing 25 years. I mean, there's probably not much I haven't photographed at this point.
Have you got any pictures that aren't of white ponies, of different ponies?
I mean, I see them in the pictures. I've got loads of horses. I've got photos of horses and ponies and donkeys, and I've got everything, man. I've done everything. Yet the irony is that none of it's in any stock libraries. All the agencies it was in like went out of business.
Yeah.
And then like I've just sat on my archive, it's not anywhere, and stock's worth so little. I like, who gives a shit? But then it's cool, man. I had the film company A24 reach out to me for some photos from Texas because they just found them online, and obviously they had to come to me because they're not getting them through anyone else. It's kind of cool.
Interesting.
But yeah, but anyway, ponies, mate, ponies. So look, I'm just going to say, I love all the instruments in the background. I'm liking the keyboards. I think if I put this on and I get these on, then like I could be like your manager. Like, Jim, we got a gig. You got to get to Hampshire by tomorrow. You know where Hampshire is?
Half of this is my dad's, and most of it is left over from playing music in bands a long time ago. But I still do like soundtrack stuff for all of the stuff that I make. I'm working currently on like a long form, I guess you'd call it audio. It's going to have music, like sound tests, because I record all of the interviews that I do. It's going to have that, and then all the still images. You're always playing with different things, you know, always learning new skills, always trying to work out how to integrate them and present. Like some people really like looking at photographs on big screen TVs. Wow. So audio slideshows is a no-brainer.
Yeah. Well, that was the big thing. If you remember the mid-noughties, it was all multimedia. Everything was multimedia. Yeah. That was the big thing online. So like audio, whatever. And it was fun. It was really cool. It was a great format. And yet then it kind of died. I never get all the kind of podcasts about photography. Like you can't see them. What the hell are you doing? It's like, you know, sound and vision, man. David Bowie told us, sound and vision. So, you know, you can put those images together and have text and dialogue, and you can make something really cool, you know?
Well, I'm hoping somebody does something like tonight as like, a channel. Because I see lots of podcasts about photography, and it's one person, and I'm like, I don't really care that much about your opinion, but I do care about kind of like collective opinions, and how, you know, tonight's been really affable and really lovely because I think we're all here for a common goal. But it would also lend itself to, you know, discussing like differences as well, just as long as you can do it cordially. You know, that's because the podcast landscape or the YouTube landscape of photography is, well, I just don't go there because I never see anything that interests me.
No.
It's either talking about, it's either selling me something, or it's showing me something in a long format, what really could take 30 seconds.
But then the only thing against that is like, you've been around the block, I've been around the block. To some kid who's just getting into photography, they might find it really insightful. Whereas a lot of the stuff you hear people say, you're like, yeah, I worked that out. Like when I've been doing this 3 years, I worked that out when I was doing this 10 years. You know, it's kind of harder.
But then it's not for them.
Can I just say, I've shut up, haven't I, Jim? I think I've done well this round. I think I was, yeah.
Yeah, you've been very, what's the word? Very reserved, which is highly unlike you.
Yeah, it's really hard. I was making notes. I was doing what a guy I used to work with. I used to notice he'd write notes when things are going on, and he'd always say at the end. And I was like, I'm always cutting in because I'm so excited. And so I was typing things to say at the end of it. But it was hard to find a gap because you guys are chatting really well.
Like, I haven't done that at all.
No, you're the guest. You're the guest.
I haven't done that at all,
baby. You're the star. Let's do it again. You're the star, Jim. You're the star, Jim. We got to get you to Leicestershire. Leicestershire. You got to get to Leicestershire, Jim. They're expecting you.
We should do it like this,
baby.
We're like the Blues Brothers of photography.
Shall I do Pound Shop Wolverine? Pound Shop Wolverine. Pound Shop Wolverine.
Oh my God.
Please come back. Please come back, Mark.
Yeah,
he's there. Oh shit, he's there. He's
back.
There.
Good, because we just.
Oh, no swearing.
Hey,
hello, child. Hello, sorry.
That's Leo.
Hey, Leo.
DiCaprio.
We're dressing up. We're having a fun chat with your daddy.
Can you guys hear me okay?
We can hear you fine.
I haven't got my headphones on. Cool. Leo, do you want to say hello?
Hello, Leo. When's your next film coming out?
Soon, yeah. So listen, boys, I'm gonna have to get Leo to bed.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about your photos now, okay?
I'm gonna go to bed. I'm exhausted. I've been awake for 26 hours.
Oh man, I didn't even. Hold on, I'll just quickly blitz them. Okay, look, there you go. There's the cover of the book, people, on Kickstarter now for what, like another 2 days, 3 days by the time I get this out.
I mean, unlike Jim made his Kickstarter targeting about a day or something like that.
And Jim, when's your target end? When's your deadline for your Kickstarter?
An hour after mine, something like that.
Yeah, about the same. Yeah, 2 days.
Yeah.
2 days.
So again, thank you, gentlemen. Much appreciated. Guys, go get the books. If you missed the Kickstarters because you're watching this in a year's time or something, because it's, you know, YouTube, go get them. Get the second editions. But yeah, kisses, guys. You're amazing. Thank you so much. Really good back and forth between you. Really, really a pleasure to just be part of that.
I want to know what Leo thinks about everything.
Leo, what do you think of everything? He just thinks about cars mostly. Cars.
Really? You like cars?
Peppa Pig.
Yeah, and Ted and Peppa Pig and teddy bears.
Peppa Pig.
Yeah,
Peppa Pig?
Peppa
I like
Pig.
Peppa Pig.
Yeah,
My dog's got a pig. We call it Mr. Piggles.
Mr. Pickles. Is that a good name for a pig?
No.
No. What do you think?
Piggles?
What do you think Jim's
Oh.
dog should be called?
Peppa Pig.
Peppa Pig.
Peppa
Yeah.
Pig. All right, we'll
Keep
try
on
that.
brand. Keep on
It's just
brand,
a-
Leo.
it's just
You
a
know,
toy pig that she-
keywording, man. It's all about keywording.
I think George.
Yeah, George as well. Yeah, definitely.
George.
Should we get you to bed now?
Got I go some inside a bomb stuff bomb.
Right. I'm gonna get this young man to bed before his big screen thing is finishing, I think.
I want to know what he said. What did he say, Mark?
You'll have to watch it back on YouTube, Jim.
Your book is his favourite, Jim.
Oh, well,
That's-
Leo, you're my favourite now. All right.
Yeah.
Later, guys.
Night,
Bye,
everyone.
Leo.
Thanks again. See ya. Bye.
Bye.